The last alien of her kind, she made the human her ultimate obsession, a sci-fi HFY story. In the far reaches of the galaxy, beyond the stars that twinkled like distant promises, there existed an ancient race of aliens known as the Zorith. Their civilization had thrived for millennia, mastering technologies that could alter the fabric of space itself. But that was all in the past. Now, they were a forgotten species, the last remnants scattered across dying worlds. Alexara was the final Zorith, the last of her kind. She had watched as her people crumbled, their cities falling into ruin, their knowledge lost to the void. She had long since abandoned the search for her race's survival. The Zorith were gone, and so was any hope for their future. Yet, Alexara was not alone. One day, her ship's sensors detected something unprecedented, a human vessel drifting in the deep of space, far from Earth's known territories. Humans, with their primitive technology and seemingly endless curiosity, had ventured to the outer reaches of the galaxy. Alexara observed them from the shadows, fascinated by their resilience, their defiance against the odds. They were young, chaotic, and full of contradictions, but there was one human who stood out to her, Captain Elias Blackwood. She had studied him from afar, marveling at his intelligence, his ability to adapt to hostile environments, and most of all, his unparalleled drive. He reminded her of the Zorith in their prime, when they sought knowledge and mastery of the universe. She had never encountered a species so persistent, so determined. For months, Alexara followed Blackwood, watching his every move. She saw his leadership in the heat of battle, his compassion in the face of loss, and his unwavering resolve to protect his crew. She watched how his presence could unite people, how his ideas could change the course of history. And in him, Alexara saw a reflection of her own lost potential. The Zorith had been creators, visionaries who once looked to the stars with ambition and purpose. But now, she was a relic, the last of her kind, without a purpose. But Blackwood, the human, seemed to have a purpose. He was a beacon of hope, even if he didn't realize it. In time, Alexara's obsession grew. She began to intervene in his missions, subtly guiding him through perilous situations, providing cryptic hints that only he could decipher. She didn't reveal herself directly, though, to do so would be too dangerous. Instead, she observed, guiding the human through the vast expanse of space like a silent ghost. Blackwood's crew started noticing the strange occurrences. Supplies would appear in their storage lockers just when they needed them most. Dangerous anomalies that once threatened their ship were suddenly avoided, as though fate itself had shifted in their favor. Blackwood, however, suspected something more, something behind the curtain. His keen intellect and natural curiosity led him to investigate the patterns of these mysterious occurrences. Eventually, his investigation led him to an ancient ruin on a forgotten planet. There, hidden beneath layers of dust and broken stone, he found evidence of a race long extinct. He found the Zorith. Intrigued, Blackwood connected the dots, realizing that something had been watching him, guiding him. He confronted the mysterious benefactor through encrypted messages, each one a challenge, each one a puzzle. Alexara, for the first time, allowed herself to be seen. She reached out to him, revealing a fragment of her true identity. "Why?" Blackwood asked through the encrypted line, his voice both curious and wary. "Why have you been watching me?" Alexara's voice, distant and cold, crackled through the calms. "Because you are everything we were once, and everything we could have been. Your kind, you humans, you don't know the full extent of your potential. But I do. I see it in you, in your species." Her voice softened, almost wistful. "I have seen civilizations rise and fall. I have watched as entire worlds vanished into the darkness. But you are different. You refuse to be crushed by the weight of the universe. You fight, you adapt, you survive." Blackwood took a long breath. "So, you're trying to make us into something more? To turn us into what you were?" "No," she said, her tone sharp. "I am not trying to recreate the Zorith. I am trying to understand you, to see what you could become. I made you my obsession because I believe your kind is the future, the next step in the evolution of the galaxy, and I will not allow you to be lost, like we were." She paused, the weight of her loneliness pressing down on her words. "I am the last of the Zorith. My people are gone, but I believe, in you, the humans, I can find a purpose once more." Blackwood was silent for a moment, contemplating her words. Then, in his usual way, he responded with a simple question. And what do you want from us? I want to learn. I want to help. I want to see if your kind can truly rise above the stars and beyond, to become something greater than any civilization that has ever existed, to see what the universe will look like when humans are at its helm. With that, Alex R.A. revealed her true form, an ethereal figure, glowing with an otherworldly light, her appearance shifting with the fleeting passage of time. She was a being of immense knowledge, a keeper of a long-lost history, but also something more, a remnant of a bygone age that had no place in the present. But as she stared at Blackwood, she saw something that no one else had ever seen in her: hope. And with that hope, the Zoratha's final legacy would be fulfilled, not through her species, but through the humans she had made her ultimate obsession. Together, the last of the Zorath and the human captain would forge a new future, one where both their kinds could rise, not as adversaries, but as partners, destined to transcend the last alien of her kind. She made the human her ultimate obsession. Part 2. Alex R.A.'s revelation stunned Captain Elias Blackwood. The years of battling against alien forces, navigating the unknown, and conquering the stars with his crew had always been about survival, never about understanding the grand purpose behind it all. But now, standing on the precipice of an unimaginable truth, Blackwood's mind raced with questions. The Zorath, once a magnificent and advanced race, were gone, but the last of them, Alex R.A., had seen something in humanity, a potential so vast that it consumed her every thought. She had dedicated herself to watching over humanity, subtly guiding Blackwood, seeing in him and his people a glimmer of something that might surpass even the greatness of the Zorath. I don't understand, Blackwood finally said, his voice steady despite the enormity of the situation. What do you mean? You want to learn? You already know everything. You've been guiding us. You've been manipulating us from the shadows, trying to turn us into something. What? A new Zorath? Alex R.A.'s form flickered slightly, her eyes, if they could be called eyes, glowing with an ancient sorrow. No, I am not trying to recreate the Zorath. I have no intention of remaking my people. I simply want to understand why your kind is different. Why you, humans, resist everything that the universe throws at you. Why you refuse to die. She let the words hang in the silence between them, an eternity of questions with no answers. You've watched us. You've helped us survive. But why? Blackwood's voice softened, the weight of her isolation suddenly clear to him. Why not just leave us to our fate? You're alone. Why do you care about humanity? Alex R.A.'s voice trembled slightly, the faintest echo of emotion breaking through her calculated tone. Because I am the last of the Zorath. I have lived through the collapse of my civilization. I watched my people disappear into the darkness, each one a reminder that even the greatest of civilizations can fall. I have existed in that emptiness, surrounded by the cold void of space and the ghosts of the past. She paused, as though the weight of her centuries-long solitude finally came crashing down on her. And in you, in humans, I see what we once were, the fire that drives you, the raw, untapped potential. I see the hope I have lost. You are the future. You will not fall like we did. Blackwood took a step closer, his voice softening with understanding. You're not just watching us, are you? You're trying to guide us. Make sure we don't repeat the mistakes of the past. Alex R.A.'s form shimmered again, the slightest hint of approval in her tone. Yes, I have seen the way your kind handles adversity. You do not submit to fate. You fight it, claw at it, bend it to your will. I cannot help but be captivated by that. Blackwood took a deep breath. But we don't know everything. We haven't seen the galaxy the way you have. You're far beyond us. That is true, Alex R.A. admitted. But I have lived in isolation for too long. I have watched your species struggle and grow, learning from your mistakes. And now, I ask myself, can humanity survive without the burden of old knowledge? Can your species become something greater without the mistakes of the past clouding your vision? Blackwood's eyes narrowed, pondering her words. So you're saying that humanity could be better off without everything the Zorath knew? Exactly, Alex R.A. responded. I believe your species has the potential to be free, to be truly free, to create your own path, unburdened by the past. But I also know the dangers of such freedom. Without guidance, without wisdom, there is always the risk of repeating our mistakes. This is why I have chosen you. I have chosen you to guide humanity. The silence between them stretched on as Blackwood processed her words. She had been a constant presence in his life for months now, silent, cryptic, yet undeniably powerful. Her guidance had helped him and his crew survive numerous impossible situations. And yet, here she was, offering him something far more profound, the chance to lead humanity into an unknown future, free from the constraints of an ancient past. I don't know if we're ready for that, Blackwood admitted. We're just starting to find our place in the galaxy. We're still learning, still making mistakes. Alexare's form seemed to solidify, her presence a quiet, steady force in the room. And that is the beauty of it, Captain Blackwood. Your species has the ability to evolve, to adapt, to make its own mistakes and learn from them. You will be the architects of your own destiny. And if I can help, even in a small way, I will. You will not be alone. He looked at her, feeling the weight of her centuries of wisdom and solitude, the burden of a civilization lost to time, and yet, the hope she had placed in him and his people. For the first time in his life, Blackwood felt the gravity of his actions, the enormity of the responsibility he carried, not just for his crew, not just for humanity, but for an entire future. We won't let you down, he promised, his voice unwavering. We'll make sure humanity doesn't repeat the mistakes of the past. We'll be better. Alexare's form flickered again, a faint, almost imperceptible smile on her features. I believe you, Captain Blackwood, and I believe in your kind. The universe will be shaped by your hands, and in time, you will rise. With that, she vanished, leaving Blackwood alone, but not truly. He felt her presence, her watchful gaze, always there, guiding, observing, and perhaps, in some way, finding solace in the very humanity she had come to obsess over. The journey of Captain Elias Blackwood and the last of the Zorith had only just begun. The stars beckoned, their mysteries vast and endless, and for the first time in millennia, Alexare knew that she had found a purpose. Together with humanity, they would reach beyond the limits of space and time, forging a future neither species could have imagined alone. The last alien of her kind, she made the human her ultimate obsession, Part 3. Weeks passed, and Captain Elias Blackwood and his crew continued their journey across the stars, unaware that Alexare's watchful presence never truly left them. The Zoritha's legacy now intertwined with humanity's future in ways Blackwood could barely comprehend. He couldn't ignore the changes in his thoughts, the subtle influences that guided his decisions, the whispers of knowledge, the odd sense of timing in his plans. It was as if Alexare was right there with him, shaping his every move. Yet, it wasn't just her influence that made him feel different. He felt an intense responsibility growing inside him, a weight that hadn't been there before. Humanity's future was in his hands, and now, with the Zoritha's legacy on his shoulders, it felt more real than ever. One evening, while studying an ancient star map provided by Alexare, Blackwood's mind wandered to the question that had been gnawing at him for days. Why me? Why humanity? It was a question that had no simple answer. The next day, as the crew of the Seraphim traveled through uncharted space, an alarm sounded. The ship shook with violent turbulence, and Blackwood's heart raced as the crew scrambled to their stations. A massive, unidentified object appeared on their radar, too large to be a natural phenomenon, but not one they could identify. Captain, we're being pulled toward it, Lieutenant Mara Evans shouted over the chaos. Gravitational anomalies. It's not a planet, but it's huge. Blackwood's eyes darted to the screen, where the object loomed in the distance. It was like nothing they had ever encountered. Its surface was smooth, metallic, and glowing faintly with a blue hue. There were no obvious signs of life or movement, but the pull of its gravity was undeniable. It wasn't just a celestial body, it was something engineered. Captain, we need to pull away or we'll be dragged in, the helmsman cried, his hands gripping the controls with desperation. For a moment, Blackwood hesitated, but then, he remembered the things Alexare had taught him. The Zorith had mastered many secrets of the universe. Perhaps this was another one of those secrets, another puzzle, just waiting to be unlocked. We're going in, he ordered, his voice calm and steady. Are you insane? Evans demanded, her eyes wide with disbelief. We don't know what that thing is. Blackwood didn't respond. His eyes flickered to the corner of the command deck, as though expecting to see Alexare there. standing beside him. And, though she was not physically present, he could feel her, guiding him. Her obsession with humanity had been rooted in the belief that they were capable of far more than anyone, even themselves, understood. This was their chance to prove it. "Take us in slowly," Blackwood instructed, his voice unwavering. As the seraphim drew closer, the gravitational pull increased. But something unexpected happened. A communication signal came through, a strange, encrypted message in a language that Blackwood couldn't recognize. But somehow, it felt familiar, like a whisper from the past. Before he could react, the object emitted a pulse of energy, enveloping the ship in an eerie glow. The entire crew tensed, bracing for the worst. The seraphim was pulled into the gravitational field, and the lights flickered before going out completely. For a brief moment, there was nothing but silence. Then, the ship's systems rebooted, and Blackwood's eyes snapped open. He felt disoriented, but strangely connected, as though the pulse of energy had unlocked something within him. The ship's interior was the same, except for one thing: they were no longer in the same place. They had entered an entirely different part of space, an uncharted region filled with strange nebulae and unfamiliar constellations. "Captain, what just happened?" Lieutenant Evans asked, her voice shaky. Blackwood was speechless for a moment, his mind racing. He turned to the view screen, trying to make sense of the stars outside. His hands instinctively moved to his console, where the cryptic message was still on display. He deciphered the first few lines, the symbols glowing in a pattern that seemed to pulse in rhythm with his heartbeat. It wasn't a language, at least not in the traditional sense. It was something far deeper, something connected to the core of the universe itself. And then he heard it, a voice, soft but unmistakable. It was Alex R.A. "Captain Blackwood, you have been chosen. You and your people are on the brink of something extraordinary. This is the test, the trial that will determine whether you are truly capable of the potential I see in you." His heart skipped a beat. This was no accident. Before he could respond, Alex R.A. continued. "The object you've encountered is an ancient relic, left behind by my people as a way to test those who might follow us. The Zorith knew that they were not the end of the universe's story. You are. But to claim your place, you must prove that you understand the balance between creation and destruction, the delicate harmony that holds the cosmos together." Blackwood's eyes widened. "Test? What kind of test?" "You will find the answer in the heart of this relic. It is not simply a ship. It is a trial, a mechanism built by my people to measure the worth of the species we once believed could rise above us. It is not just a test of strength or intelligence. It is a test of your soul. Will you choose to destroy everything, as many civilizations have? Or will you choose creation and evolution, as we once did?" The voice faded as quickly as it had come, leaving Blackwood standing in stunned silence. The crew looked at him with mixed expressions of fear and confusion, but Blackwood's mind was already made up. "We're going to find out," he said, his voice strong and resolute. "We're going to pass this test." With a firm grip on the wheel, Blackwood ordered the crew to approach the ancient relic further. He knew the path ahead would be dangerous, but he also knew that humanity was ready for whatever challenge awaited them. Alex R.A. had placed her faith in them, and he couldn't afford to let her, or the universe, down. The test had begun, and the future of humanity, and the Zoritha's last legacy, rested in his hands. The last alien of her kind, she made the human her ultimate obsession. Part 4. The Seraphim continued its slow, deliberate approach toward the enigmatic relic, now floating within a strange and uncharted region of space. The crew worked in tense silence, all of them aware that they were part of something far greater than themselves, something that could change the course of the universe. Captain Blackwood stood at the helm, his gaze locked on the shimmering structure ahead. The relic was massive, its surface made of smooth, metallic material that reflected the distant stars like a mirror. Its shape was not symmetrical, but rather organic, as though it had been grown rather than built. Pulses of energy continued to radiate from it, creating ripples in spacetime that tugged at the Seraphim's hull. "What do we know about this thing, Captain?" Mara Evans asked, her voice calm but laced with uncertainty. She stood next to him, her hands hovering over the ship's control panel, ready for any sudden change. "Not much," Blackwood replied, his voice steady. "All we know is that it's a test, a trial designed by the Zorith, and it's here for us." "Us?" Evans repeated, arching an eyebrow. Why? Why us? Blackwood hesitated, the weight of her question pressing down on him. He couldn't fully explain why. He could only trust in Alexare's words. She had seen something in humanity, something that the Zorith, in their prime, had believed could rise to greatness. Now it was up to them to prove that worth. Before Blackwood could respond, the ship shook violently as a wave of energy burst from the relic, engulfing the Seraphim in a blinding light. Alarms screamed through the command deck, and the crew staggered to maintain their balance. "Captain, the ship is being destabilized," Lieutenant Commander Thorne shouted, trying to maintain control of the helm. "We can't keep steady against the gravitational fluctuations." "We're not backing down," Blackwood snapped, gripping the armrest of his chair. "Push through. Full speed ahead." Evans, her eyes wide with determination, adjusted the ship's thrusters to compensate for the erratic forces. The crew worked in unison, fighting the ship's sudden tilt as the Seraphim was pulled deeper into the relic's gravitational field. For what felt like an eternity, the Seraphim struggled against the tide of energy. The ship groaned under the pressure, but Blackwood refused to give in. He had seen too much potential in humanity. He would not let this be the moment they faltered. Finally, after what seemed like an endless battle, the light faded, and the gravitational pull eased. The Seraphim stabilized, but they were now inside the relic, floating in a vast, dark chamber. The walls were made of the same smooth, metallic material, glowing faintly with an eerie, blue light. Strange symbols were etched into the walls, but none of them matched any known language. It was as though they had entered a realm untouched by any known civilization. "We made it," Evans breathed, her voice filled with awe. Blackwood didn't respond. His focus was fixed on the holographic interface that flickered to life before him. A single symbol appeared on the screen, a spiral, constantly shifting. Like a living organism, it pulsed in rhythm with the energy of the relic, and Blackwood felt a strange connection to it, as if it was calling to him. Suddenly, Alexare's voice echoed in the command deck, her tone both ancient and urgent. "You have entered the heart of the trial, Captain Blackwood. The relic will test you in ways you cannot imagine. It is not only a test of your intellect, but of your deepest desires, fears, and choices. It will force you to confront what lies at the core of your soul." Blackwood's pulse quickened. He had known this moment would come, but hearing it out loud made it all the more real. "Do not falter," Alexare continued. "You must trust in yourselves and each other. Humanity is not just the future of the galaxy. You are the architects of it. What you choose in this moment will define the legacy you leave." Blackwood turned to his crew, his voice steady but filled with the weight of Alexare's words. "This is it. We don't know what's coming, but we'll face it together. We trust each other. We've made it this far because of that." Mara Evans nodded, her eyes hardening with resolve. "We've got your back, Captain." The others echoed her words, a silent agreement between them all. The hologram in front of Blackwood flickered once more, and the spiral symbol shifted, revealing a new image, this time, a series of doors, each one radiating with a different color of light. Each door represented a different path, but there was no clear indication of which one was the right one. The choice was theirs to make. "This is the trial," Blackwood muttered to himself. "We have to choose." The crew fell silent, each member contemplating the doors. Behind them, Alexare's voice seemed to grow fainter. "Choose wisely, Captain. The test is not about the doors you open, but the paths you create. The future is not set in stone. It is shaped by those who dare to forge it." Blackwood felt the weight of her words, but he also felt something else, the deep, growing clarity. This was a choice, yes, but it wasn't just about choosing the right path. It was about making humanity's future their own, free from the mistakes of the past. They weren't just opening doors, they were creating them. The crew turned to him, waiting for his decision. Blackwood stepped forward, his hand hovering over the first door. Each one pulsed with an energy all its own, each one promising something different: power, knowledge, peace, destruction. The choices were endless. Without hesitation, Blackwood reached for the door that shone with the light of creation. It was the door that held the promise of hope, the possibility of forging a new future, a future where humanity could rise beyond the boundaries of their past and take their place in the universe, not as the successors to a lost race, but as architects of their own destiny. He pushed open the door. The ship's lights flickered once more, the entire room filled with blinding light. For a moment, Blackwood felt weightless, as though the very fabric of reality was shifting around them. And then, the light faded. When it did, they found themselves standing on the precipice of something vast, an uncharted realm of space, filled with possibilities, waiting for humanity to claim it. The test had been passed, and with it, humanity's future was now in their hands. "Let's get to work," Blackwood said, his voice filled with purpose. Behind him, the crew of the Seraphim stood ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, knowing that they were no longer simply survivors. They were the future, the architects of a new age. The last alien of her kind, she made the human her ultimate obsession, Part 5. As the Seraphim drifted through the uncharted space beyond the relic, Captain Elias Blackwood felt the weight of their new reality. The path ahead was uncertain, but there was a renewed sense of purpose in the crew. They had passed the trial, proven themselves worthy in the eyes of the Zoratha's ancient legacy, and now they stood on the edge of a new chapter for humanity. The vast expanse of space stretched out before them, unexplored, untamed, and filled with limitless potential. Yet, even as Blackwood stared into the infinite, he knew the true test was only beginning. The choices they had made, the paths they had opened, would have consequences, some of which they could never predict. Mara Evans stood at his side, scanning the readings on the console. "Captain, we're detecting a signal. It's faint, but definitely coming from a nearby star system." Blackwood turned toward her. "Can you triangulate its origin?" She nodded, her fingers flying over the controls. "It's coming from a planet in the system. It's not like anything we've seen before. No standard communications protocol. This is something different." He raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Something different. How?" "Uncertain. But it's active, and it's definitely meant for us. It's almost like they've been waiting for us to arrive," Evans said, a mixture of curiosity and caution in her voice. Blackwood considered the possibilities. The relic, the trial. It was clear now that their journey was not an isolated event. This was the beginning of something much larger. There was a force, perhaps a race, or something even more ancient, that had anticipated their arrival. He couldn't shake the feeling that Alexore's final words were guiding them to something beyond their understanding. "We're heading there," Blackwood ordered. "Set a course for the planet. Let's see what's waiting for us." The crew worked quickly, recalibrating their ship's trajectory toward the distant system. The mysterious signal seemed to grow stronger as they neared, a pulsing rhythm that felt almost familiar. As the Seraphim entered the system, the crew stood at the ready. The planet they approached was covered in swirling clouds, the atmosphere thick with electrical storms. Yet, there was something undeniably strange about it. Its gravitational field was different from any planet they had encountered, and its surface, when briefly illuminated by flashes of lightning, revealed massive structures, ancient ruins, scattered across the surface like remnants of a long-lost civilization. "Look at that," Lieutenant Commander Thorne murmured, his voice filled with awe. "These ruins are far older than anything we've ever seen." "It's not just the ruins," Blackwood said, his eyes narrowing. "It's the energy readings coming from the planet. It's almost like the signal is being broadcast from within the planet itself." Evans nodded. "We need to be careful. This could be a trap, or something even more dangerous." "We don't have time for caution anymore," Blackwood replied, his voice resolute. "We've come this far. We're going in." The crew braced as the Seraphim descended into the planet's atmosphere, the ship's hull shaking from the turbulent electrical storms. The comms were dead, as expected, but as they neared the surface, a strange calm took hold. The storm subsided almost as if the planet was allowing them passage. Blackwood ordered the landing procedure, guiding the Seraphim toward a clearing amidst the ruins. The landing gear touched the surface with a slight jolt, and the ship settled into a quiet stillness. "We're down," Blackwood said. "Prepare for an away mission. Evans, Thorne, you're with me. The rest of you stay on the ship and monitor all systems. Let's see what's waiting for us." The away team gathered their gear, stepping out of the ship and onto the alien soil. The air was thick with static energy, and the ground beneath their boots was littered with crumbled stone structures, long since overtaken by time. The ruins were immense, monolithic, towering buildings that seemed both familiar and foreign. There was no sign of life, no indication that anyone had been here in eons. But the signal was stronger now. It was coming from deep within the largest structure at the heart of the ruins. The group moved cautiously toward it, the eerie silence of the landscape pressing in on them. As they neared the entrance to the massive building, a sudden hum vibrated through the air. The door to the structure slid open, revealing a vast chamber illuminated by flickering, otherworldly light. In the center of the room stood a massive stone pedestal, and on it, a pulsating orb, its surface alive with shifting symbols and energies. "It's beautiful," Evans whispered, as they stepped closer. Blackwood's heart raced. He could feel the energy from the orb radiating into his very soul. It wasn't just power, it was knowledge, ancient wisdom that called to him, a deep resonance that echoed with Alexare's final words. "This is what they were waiting for," Blackwood muttered, his voice filled with reverence. "This is what we've come here for." Before he could reach the pedestal, a sudden voice boomed through the chamber, not from any speaker but from the very walls themselves. "You have arrived. Humanity has passed the first trial, but now comes the ultimate test." The voice was deep, commanding, ancient, and it reverberated in Blackwood's chest. It was neither human nor alien, something beyond both. Blackwood's mind raced, but he held his ground. What is this place? What is this test? This is the culmination of the Zoratha's legacy, the relic, the trial. It was not for you to inherit the galaxy. It was for you to prove that your kind could handle the power contained within this orb. The voice paused, and the air seemed to grow heavier, the energy in the room thickening. "The test is simple. You must choose, will you take this power, and with it, the responsibility to shape the future of the galaxy as your own, or will you leave it behind, allowing others, perhaps worse than the Zorath, to claim it?" Blackwood felt the weight of the decision pressing down on him. This was the moment Alexare had spoken of. The Zorath had shaped the galaxy for millennia, but now the future was in his hands. Humanity's future. Could they rise to the occasion, or would they fall like every other species that had sought power and failed? As his hand hovered over the orb, he knew the answer. "We take it," Blackwood said, his voice steady. The chamber rumbled with energy, and the orb's surface shifted, revealing a core of pure, radiant light. It was no longer a question of whether humanity was ready. It was about claiming the future, about becoming more than the sum of their past mistakes. It was time for humanity to rise. The orb pulsed, sending a wave of power through the chamber, and Blackwood felt it, knowledge, power, and the responsibility to wield it. As the light enveloped him and his crew, he realized that their journey had just begun. And this time, it was their future to shape. The end of the beginning. The last alien of her kind, she made the human her ultimate obsession, Part 6. The light from the orb faded slowly, like the closing of a cosmic door, but its energy remained, vibrating in the air, coursing through Blackwood's veins, and expanding outward to the rest of the crew. The orb's power had passed into them, filling the room with a low hum that seemed to echo throughout the entire planet. The ground beneath their feet trembled slightly as if the very world had awakened at their touch. Blackwood took a step back, his eyes wide as he adjusted to the overwhelming surge of information flooding his mind. It was as if the universe itself had opened before him, knowledge of civilizations long gone, the intricate mechanics of the stars, the ebb and flow of time itself. He could feel it all, every star, every galaxy, every choice ever made. It was both exhilarating and terrifying. "Captain," Mara Evans whispered, her voice distant. She was still standing near the pedestal, her eyes wide with the same awe and disbelief. What just happened?" Blackwood turned to her, his own voice thick with wonder. "We've been given access to something that transcends anything we could have imagined. The Zorath weren't just the last of their kind, they were the keepers of this knowledge, this power, and now, it's ours." Thorn, who had been silent up until now, stepped forward, his face flushed with the same realization. "But it's too much, Captain. This is godlike power. What do we do with it?" For a moment, Blackwood struggled to answer. The weight of what had just transpired, what they had just claimed, was monumental. It was as if the fate of the universe had been laid out before them, and they now stood at the crossroads, each path fraught with untold consequences. The orb could destroy them, or it could help them reshape the universe itself. "We do what we must," Blackwood finally said, his voice steady. "The Zorath left this behind for us, for humanity, to prove we could rise to this challenge. We have a responsibility now to make the right choices. But how do we know we're making the right choice? Mara asked, her voice tinged with doubt. Blackwood paused, considering her question. We don't. But that's the point. We must choose. And we must choose wisely. The Zorith were once the greatest civilization in the galaxy. But they fell because they were consumed by their power. We cannot allow that to happen to us. Thorn frowned. But how can we be sure? How do we know we're different from them? That we won't fall to the same temptation? Blackwood's gaze hardened as he looked out across the vast chamber, at the ruins of the Zorith's ancient empire. We have to trust that we've learned from their mistakes. We can't afford to repeat history. We have to forge a new path, one where we take responsibility for this power, not as conquerors, but as stewards. We take it with the intent to protect, to build, to create a future that honors both our potential and our humanity. Mara nodded slowly, the weight of the captain's words settling into her mind. And what about Alex R.A.? What does she want us to do with this power? Blackwood hesitated. He had felt her presence, even now, whispering through the echoes of the Zorith's legacy. But there was no direct answer from her. She had placed her faith in humanity, but now that faith was being tested. I don't know, Blackwood admitted. But I do know one thing. This power is not just for us. It's for everyone. We can use it to uplift the galaxy, to prevent the mistakes that led to the fall of the Zorith, and ensure that no other civilization suffers the same fate. The room fell into silence as the crew absorbed the magnitude of what Blackwood had just said. They had been chosen, not because they were perfect, but because they had the potential to evolve, to grow beyond their flaws. Suddenly, the ground trembled again. This time, it wasn't the planet's natural tremors. It was something else, an unmistakable sign that something or someone was approaching. Blackwood's eyes snapped to the door of the chamber. Everyone, get ready. We're not alone here. The crew drew their weapons, prepared for whatever might emerge from the shadows. The air grew colder, and the strange energy around them intensified. A low rumbling sound echoed from deep within the ruins. Moments later, the entrance to the chamber slid open with a groan of ancient metal, revealing a figure cloaked in shadows. It stepped forward into the light, its silhouette tall and imposing. As the figure came into full view, Blackwood's heart skipped a beat. It was not human. It was not like the Zorith either. The being was humanoid, but its skin was translucent, shimmering with an ethereal glow. Its eyes, dark and infinite, locked onto Blackwood's with an unnerving intensity. The figure's face was eerily calm, devoid of any expression, but the power radiating from it was palpable. You have come, the figure said, its voice like the echo of 1,000 voices, resonating in the depths of their minds. And you have claimed what should never have been yours. Blackwood stepped forward, his stance firm, but his pulse quickening. Who are you? I am the Watcher, the being replied. I am the guardian of this power, the last line of defense against those who would misuse it. You are not the first to come, and you will not be the last, but you may be the last to survive the test. The room darkened further, and the temperature dropped. Blackwood felt the weight of the being's words, each one pressing down on him like a suffocating force. The Watcher's presence was both a threat and a warning. This was no mere test. It was a battle for their survival. You will face your reckoning now, the Watcher continued, stepping closer, its form flickering like a mirage. This power does not belong to you. It never has. Mara gripped her weapon tighter, her voice steady but laced with fear. Then why did the Zorith leave it for us? The Watcher tilted its head, a gesture that seemed almost human, yet completely alien. The Zorith were fools. They believed that their legacy would endure, that they could manipulate the forces of the universe to their will. But they failed, and now their legacy has become a burden that you must carry or destroy. Blackwood's heart raced. This was not just a test of their resolve, it was a test of their very survival. He couldn't allow the Watcher to take what they had earned, not after everything they had endured, not after everything humanity had fought for. We'll carry the burden, Blackwood declared, his voice firm, but we will not be your puppets. We will shape our future, not as conquerors, but as guardians. The galaxy's future belongs to us, and we will prove that we are worthy of it. The Watcher paused, its glowing eyes narrowing as if assessing Blackwood's words. We shall see. The air crackled with tension as the Watcher raised a hand, and the ground trembled once again. The real test was about to begin. To be continued.